Welcome everybody. Today we're going to be changing the oil on a 2015 Mazda 6. Some of the tools you're going to need for this, obviously you'll need motor oil. 0W20 is what Mazda calls for. This is the Amazon Basics full synthetic stuff. This has actually got a pretty good reputation. You need a Fram or any oil filter. I've got a Fram here. PH6607 is the model number. You're going to need an 8mm Allen wrench. In this case, an Allen socket. An Allen wrench I found doesn't give you enough leverage. That's for the oil plug. You obviously need a ratchet to operate that. I've also got a breaker bar here. Sometimes they can be a little tight. And you need a flathead screwdriver and a Phillips head screwdriver, and that's to remove the little vanity plate that's under there. I'll show you that when I get under the car. Another thing you're going to need are oil filter plug gaskets. So that's it looks like a washer, except it's pretty big on the inner diameter. These are made by Dorman, obviously. I picked these up from Amazon for the Mazda 6 for this model. It's 095-147. I think I got a box of 25 here, and it was $6 or something like that. Don't forget that you will develop a leak if you don't change these out. To stop the leak, you can over-tighten that oil pan plug and cause it to strip out or something like that. Definitely something you don't want to do. So I recommend that you don't forget to get these. So let's get to it. Before you jack the car up so you can get under it, you want to take some safety precautions and know where your proper jacking points are. Things like that to make sure that this, God forbid something happens. I put bricks behind the rear wheels, both of them, to prevent the car from rolling backwards. I also have the emergency brake in. If you have an automatic or even a stick shift, you put it in park or you put it in a gear. It's not going to prevent the car from rolling because the front tires are going to be up off the ground, so it doesn't really matter where the transmission is. If you go to change a spare tire out on this car, right there where those two little red notches are, that is where the jack goes. In between those, the car's supplied jack. So that's where I jack it for use, but because I want to put jack stands under there, way under there, see that big heavy-duty bolt there? That's the tie-in for the lower wishbone of the suspension. I put the jack, the floor jack underneath that, jack the car up, and that gives me just enough room to sneak the jack stand in here so that when I lower the car onto the jack stand, it's in the correct jacking point. Underneath the car here, obviously, what you see here is like a little vanity cover. There's actually quite a bit of underbody plastic and stuff on this car, surprisingly so. But this has to come off to gain access. You've got a screw here and a Phillips head screw over here. That's what you need the Phillips screwdriver for. Obviously, I've already started this. And then you have these little clip things, for which I absolutely detest, the little plastic clips. You got 3 of those. 2 of mine are missing. The only one that's still there is this one. I've already taken that out. But you get this off, and then you can already see right there is the access to the oil filter. Now I take these screws and I'll put them back in here just so I don't kick them by accident or whatever when I'm rolling around on the bottom of the car, so that you can try to hold on to this stuff, the little plastic clip I brought inside. Anyway, there's obviously the oil filter, and then right here is the drain plug. Now you can see I have a little drop of oil here, and I've got a little bit of evidence of leakage on here, some shininess, so I'll make sure I clean all that up. That's probably the washer starting to lose it. But anyway, you're just going to loosen that plug, take it off. I'd wear latex gloves here. I got to get mine, and then have a suitable container to catch all the oil so that you can recycle it. Alright, I got a little catch basin here, and when the oil comes out, it's going to come out in a stream, so you kind of want to set this back a little bit, but then you want to make sure if it's not big enough that you bring it forward a little bit. As this slows, it's going to drop more straight down, and you don't want to spill oil all over the ground. I don't usually pull the oil filter until I'm done draining the oil. The other thing is you want to try to get the car up to normal operating temperature or close to it. You don't want to do this in a cold car. It just lets the oil flow a little bit better. Not as important these days with the multi-grade oils that they have, but still, it's something I always got in the habit of. So we'll go ahead and we'll loosen that drain plug and let the oil go and drain it out. Definitely want to have rags here and things like that to make sure that you don't, you can clean up any minor spills or anything. But you can see how that's pouring out of there, and my bucket's kind of getting full here. Hopefully it's a big enough bucket. It says 6 quarts, so I guess I'm going to find out here real quick. But we'll just let that drain completely and let it sit for an extra minute or so to let all that oil come out, see how it's flowing pretty well. And then once that oil stream stops, I'll put the plug back in, and I do that before I do the oil filter. I kind of do this in stages so I don't forget anything, because once I get out from under the car, I don't want to like get back under it. Get the new washer on there and get that screwed down. Oil's now just a drip. Takes a couple minutes. Got the new washer on the drain plug here, the silver thing. You want to make sure that your drain plug is all nice and clean. Get any dirt or grime out of that, and then keep it clean before you put it in. You don't want to mess up any of these threads or anything. Alright, so once that the dripping slows down a little bit more, I'll get the plug in there, get that area cleaned up, and then get the oil filter off. When you do the oil filter, even though it's upside down, you will get a little bit of residual oil out. So again, make sure your bucket's under there and you've got some rags handy and everything to keep stuff clean. Oil filter's obviously out. You want to clean the seating surface off and just check to make sure that it looks to be in good shape. This looks fine. Just looking for big gouges or anything like that that's going to prevent a good oil filter seal. So we'll get the new oil filter out, and we're going to put a little bit of fresh oil around the seating surface and then screw that down. Put the oil filter on. Once you get it seated, get it snug. When you put your oil filter on, you want to go half to 3/4 of the turn past seated, and a nice hand tight. You don't want to get it too tight because it doesn't need to be. That seating surface will seal it. It's not under a whole lot of pressure, and it just makes it a pain in the rear when you need to go get it out again. Alright, so the oil filter is replaced, the oil is drained. I'll put this vanity cover back on, and then get ready to, I'll put the car back on the ground, and then go back and fill it up with oil. Obviously in the engine bay here, right here is the fill cap for the oil, and then right next to it is the dipstick. So obviously I don't expect any oil in this, so I'm going to pull the dipstick out and clean it. Owner's manual says this thing takes 5 quarts, which is convenient because that's exactly how much you buy these days. So I got a little funnel here. Again, everything, I clean everything up and check the seals on stuff. You want to make sure the cap has this little rubber seal here. You don't really expect that to degrade easily, but you want to make sure that it's clean. Alright, just going to go ahead and pour this in. Not a whole lot to it. I know the thing takes 5 quarts, like I said, so I'll probably put in about 4.5 or so, and then from that point on I'll start checking the dipstick level. Now's a good time to make sure, you know, double check yourself to make sure that you actually put the drain plug in. Just give yourself the thought. Alright, we'll do our first check of the dipstick. Every time you pull the dipstick out, you want to clean it, then put it in to check your level. Make sure it's all the way in. There's a little seal on that too that'll prevent it from, you know, there's a little seal on that too that can hold it up, so you want to make sure that that thing's all the way in there. Just starting to get a little bit on the tip. Now you notice those 2 circles. The bottom circle's for the low mark, the top circle's for the high mark. You want to be, you know, in the middle of that, not below or not above. Normally, you've got about 1/4 of oil to get from the low to the top. So I've got just over 1 quart in here, and I'm just below that, the low dot, so I expect it to work out just fine. Pour most of the rest of that in. Check the dipstick again. Every time you pull it out, clean it off before you check it. Alright, so now I am just above the lower dot, so I know that I'm getting close. The other thing you got to remember is that oil filter is going to take a little bit of oil, so that'll take a little bit of your level out. So based on where I am in the rest of the oil, I'm just going to go ahead and pour the rest of it in. Alright, put the oil cap down. Make sure it's spun until it's tight. Oil cap's just like a little twist lock, so it doesn't really screw down per se. Check the oil level one more time. Alright, and I am just below the top dot there, so that's good. When I get the car started up here in a second and that oil fills the oil filter, it should be right down the middle. All set. So now we'll go in, start the car, check the oil light. Alright, on the tachometer around the number 2 or the number 3, and you can kind of see it right below the number 2 at about 1.5 or so. You can kind of see the outline of it. That's the oil warning light. So it's quick. I did not, you want to check that to make sure that that clears, or even if it comes in. So I'm going to just turn the ignition on without starting the car so you can see it. So you can see that little Aladdin's lamp looking thing, and that's already clear. So that tells me that As far as the car is concerned, I got to go to oil pressure. It's a little weird. So now we'll start it, and you don't want that thing to come on. Alright, so it didn't come on, so I expect that I have good oil pressure. I'll go back out, I'll check the dipstick, and that'll about wrap it up. Alright, pull the dipstick again, clean it off all the way, put it back in. Alright, so you can see there, it's just above the little dot. Well, I don't have any more oil, but I know I'm safe, but I'll want to get another quart of 0W20 and top that off a little bit. So that's it. So that's how you change your oil on a 2015, and probably most vehicles, frankly, Mazda 6. Thanks for watching.